Hey friends, tonight we're going to step into one of those quiet late night conversations you can only have when the world has finally stopped buzzing. You know, the kind you might whisper to yourself when you can't sleep and the room feels just a little too still. There are times when you've done nothing but live kindly, and yet pain knocks on your door without warning. You've harmed no one. You've fought for nothing yet. Loss, illness, and trouble line up like an endless string of bad luck. And somewhere inside that old question slips in, what did I do to deserve this? Sometimes we blame a past life, sometimes fate, or some vague, invisible thing called karma. But onward. What if karma isn't what you think it is? What if it's not a sentence, not a punishment from the universe, but something far more subtle and far more within your reach to understand? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to drop a little note in the comments. Tell me where in the world you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Every comment is like a small lantern we light together on this shared path. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've probably heard the word karma tossed around in casual conversation. A friend cancels plans and gets stuck in traffic. Karma, someone jokes. A co-worker who's been cutting corners finally gets caught. Well, that's karma for you. But what if I told you this word we throw around so lightly has a much deeper, much quieter truth than the pop culture version we've grown used to? In its original Pali form, kamma simply means intentional action, not a cosmic scoreboard, not a supernatural slap on the wrist, just an action born from a choice you make through your body, your words, or even the private thoughts no one else can see. Think about it. A single thought of resentment, that tiny spark of I can't stand them, is already a seed of karma. A careless, sarcastic comment you let slip, karma. A small kindness you offer to a stranger, karma too. It's not about reward or punishment. It's about cause and effect. The way planting a tomato seed in good soil eventually grows a tomato plant, not because anyone judged the seed, but because that's just the nature of seeds. Karma doesn't play favorites. It doesn't care about status, bank accounts, or how well you can talk your way out of trouble. It works the way fire burns, the way water makes you wet. It's just how life moves. And here's the tricky part. Most of our karma is created in the smallest, most ordinary moments. Not in grand life decisions, not in ceremonies or life-changing events, but in the way you roll your eyes at someone when they're speaking, the way you let your tone sharpen when you're tired, the way you listen or don't. If you've ever spent an afternoon in a bad mood because of one small bitter thought you couldn't shake, you've already felt karma in real time. The world didn't punish you. You just lived inside the weather you created in your own mind. The beauty and the danger is that karma is being sown constantly. Every moment you're planting something in the soil of your mind. Sometimes it's flowers. Sometimes it's weeds. And unlike the way we treat karma in jokes or social media captions, the real version isn't instant cosmic revenge or reward. It's the quiet shaping of the person you're becoming. Which means it's also completely possible to change its course. But before we get to how that works, you need to know karma isn't all the same. In fact, the Buddha described 4 distinct kinds, each with its own timing and its own way of shaping your life. And the first of those is the kind you can spot before you even finish your morning coffee. The kind that blooms fast, sometimes within the same breath you planted it. That's where we're going next. Some seeds take years to sprout. Others burst open almost before you've even covered them with soil. Immediate karma is like that. It's the ripple you can watch form on the water while the pebble is still falling. It's the way a single harsh word can shatter the trust between 2 friends in seconds. Or the way a small unexpected kindness can warm someone's entire day before you've even walked away. Think about the last time you spoke in anger. Not the mild, grumpy kind, real anger, the sharp kind you can feel in your throat. Maybe you didn't even mean it, but the words left your mouth and there it was. The look on their face changed. The air in the room changed. You felt it settle in your stomach. That's immediate karma. It doesn't wait for some distant lifetime. It's here in the same hour, sometimes the same heartbeat. It works both ways though. Maybe you've been standing in a grocery line and the stranger ahead of you sees you holding just one item. They smile and say, "Go ahead, you first." It costs them nothing, but you walk out feeling lighter. Maybe you even pass it along to the next person you meet without thinking about it. Immediate karma is simple cause and effect in its clearest form. No mysticism, no mystery. It's the real-time reflection of the energy you send out. And once you start noticing it, you can't unsee it. The beauty of this kind of karma is that you can shift it on the spot. You can catch yourself mid-sentence, soften your tone, and change the whole outcome. You can reach for understanding instead of sarcasm and see the tension dissolve in front of you. It's like steering a bike. You don't have to wait until the end of the street to turn. You can adjust right now. So let me ask you, what's one small moment in your day today where you saw immediate karma at work? Maybe it was a smile returned. Maybe it was a frown. Drop it in the comments. Your story might be the exact thing someone else needs to hear tonight. And here's the thing, not all karma shows up this fast. Some of it hides underground, like a seed in winter waiting, quietly gathering strength until the season is right. That kind of karma. We'll explore it next. Not every seed grows the moment you plant it. Some stay buried under the soil, invisible, quietly taking root. And then, months, years, sometimes even lifetimes later, they bloom. This is delayed karma, the kind that doesn't rush, the kind that waits until conditions are just right. You might not even remember planting it, but when it arrives, it can feel as if it's been following you your whole life. Imagine someone who's been generous, kind, and honest for decades, yet their early years were marked by struggle and scarcity. From the outside, it looks unfair. Why should someone so good suffer so much? But if you could zoom out and see the whole map of causes and conditions, the roots stretching beyond this lifetime, you might see a bigger balance at work. And it works in reverse too. Someone can be reckless, selfish, even cruel, and still seem blessed with comfort, luck, and opportunity. From one lifetime's view, it's maddening. But from the perspective of delayed karma, those blessings are simply old seeds now breaking the surface. And the consequences of their current actions may be waiting far down the road. The danger here is thinking you've escaped, that you can plant thorn bushes and still walk forever in rose gardens. Delayed karma is patient. It doesn't chase you. It doesn't knock on your door in the night. It simply arrives when the time is right. That's why the wisest people live carefully even when no one is watching. They tend their inner garden quietly, knowing that just because the sky is clear today doesn't mean the storm isn't coming or the harvest isn't on its way. And there's something beautiful in that too. Because if you've planted good seeds and haven't seen them grow yet, it's not because they're lost. They're just waiting for their season. And when it comes, the bloom will be worth the wait. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had something good or bad happen and only much later realized it was tied to something you did long ago? Share it in the comments. Your reflection might help someone recognize the seeds they're planting right now. But there's one kind of karma that doesn't wait at all. No delays, no pause to catch your breath. When it's triggered, it sweeps you instantly into its consequence, and it can shape the very next moment after your life ends. That's where we're headed next. Some actions give you space to reconsider, to reflect, to turn back and make amends. And then there are choices so heavy, so absolute that the moment they're made, there's no gap between cause and consequence. No space to breathe, no chance to undo. This is uninterrupted karma, the kind the Buddha described as immediate and irreversible. When it's set in motion, it flows straight into its outcome, like water spilling over the edge of a cliff, falling until it hits the depths below. In ancient teachings, there are examples. Taking the life of your own parents, destroying a community of spiritual practice, deliberately harming a being who's completely free of anger or hatred. These aren't just crimes in the way we think of law and order, they're acts that tear at the very roots of compassion, wisdom, and trust. They don't just hurt people, they erode the foundation of what makes us human. And here's the thing, most of us will never commit something so extreme. But uninterrupted karma doesn't only exist in ancient lists. It has echoes in the modern world too. It's in the moment you intentionally shatter someone's deepest faith in themselves. The moment you take a truth and twist it so completely that it can't be put back. The moment you deliberately sow division where there could have been healing. When we're caught in anger, arrogance, or deep spite, it can feel like the world narrows down to that one burning point and we forget there's a way back. That's the danger. By the time we see the damage, the chain is already complete. And maybe that's why the wise approach is to guard the mind at its smallest impulses. To notice the flicker of envy before it grows into cruelty. To breathe through the spark of anger before it becomes a fire that can't be contained. Because the truth is, none of us are immune. And none of us want to live with the kind of weight that follows you beyond this life without pause or reprieve. So here's something I'd like you to do. Think of one moment in your life when you almost said or did something you knew would leave permanent damage, but didn't. What stopped you? Share that in the comments. Your story might help someone else step back from that same edge. Now, if uninterrupted karma is like a cliff, sudden and absolute, there's another kind that's more like the captain of a ship. It doesn't happen every day, but when it does, it takes the wheel and steers your entire future. That's the one we'll explore next. Life isn't made up of just one choice or one moment. It's a mosaic, thousands of tiny actions, words, and thoughts layered over time. But here's something fascinating. When the moment comes to leave this life, not all of those pieces have the same weight. In the swirl of everything you've done, one thread, one current can rise to the surface and pull you in its direction. This is dominant karma. It's the strongest influence in your stream of mind, the one that takes the lead when all the other karmas are present. Think of it like an orchestra, dozens of instruments playing at once, but the conductor lifts the baton and suddenly the entire symphony follows one beat. Dominant karma can be built over years of repetition. A habit of kindness that becomes second nature, or a habit of bitterness that colors everything you see. It can also appear from a single, powerful act charged with deep intention, a moment of sincere forgiveness, or a moment of pure rage. The sobering part. You never know when that final moment will come, when the conductor will step up and decide the direction of your next journey. That means every moment is a rehearsal. Every thought you nurture, every small choice you repeat is like giving the baton to a certain part of yourself. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Someone who's lived with many mistakes can still shift their dominant karma. A single wholehearted turn toward compassion or truth can outweigh years of confusion. The reverse is also true. Someone who's lived mostly in kindness can, in their last breath, hand the wheel to anger or fear. So, if dominant karma is the captain of the ship, the real question becomes, who are you training to take the wheel? Pause for a moment and think about it. If your journey ended tonight, which part of you would lead? Would it be the one who forgives easily or the one who still keeps score? Drop your answer or even just a feeling into the comments. Sometimes naming it out loud is the first step to guiding it where you want it to go. And here's the thread that ties it all together. If karma is the seeds you plant, the water that feeds them, and the garden that blooms, where is all of this recorded? Who's keeping track? Next, we'll pull back the curtain on where karma truly lives. People often imagine karma like a cosmic ledger. Some invisible accountant somewhere writing down every good deed in gold ink and every wrong in black. And one day, At the end of your life, they'll read the totals back to you. It's a neat image, but it's not how it works. There's no heavenly clerk, no divine judge with a gavel, no giant scoreboard in the clouds. Karma is kept much closer than that. It's written in the mind itself. Every thought, every choice, every intention. You don't just send them out into the world, you imprint them into the fabric of your own consciousness. Think of your mind as a field. Every time you act, speak, or think with intention, you plant a seed in that field. The soil doesn't forget. It doesn't care whether the seed is wheat or weeds, it simply holds it waiting for the right season to grow. That's why people can walk around with a storm inside, even when everything on the outside looks fine. No one else may remember the harsh words they spoke last year, but the mind remembers. And it will echo them back as restlessness, guilt, or unease. It works the other way too. Someone can quietly help others without recognition, without praise, and still carry a kind of unshakable warmth in their chest. Because the mind remembers that too. This is where transformation begins. Not in trying to erase the past like rubbing out chalk on a board, but in tending to what you plant now. Because the mind doesn't keep score to punish you. It simply mirrors what you've sown. So here's something to consider if your mind is the only place your karma is written. What story are you writing in it today? If someone could read the tone of your mind right now, not the words, just the feeling, would they find peace or something else? Leave a word or phrase in the comments that captures the weather in your mind tonight. Sometimes just naming it can be the first shift toward clearing the skies. And if the mind is the keeper, that means it's also the one who can set you free. Which brings us to something even more important, how to change the course you're already on. That's where we'll go next. There's a common belief that once karma is set in motion, it's locked in like a train stuck on a track. It can't leave. And sure, you can't erase what's already been done. A seed planted will still sprout when its time comes. But here's the truth. The direction of your life isn't a single fixed track. It's more like a river. And even if the current is strong, the one holding the oar can still steer. Changing course doesn't happen by pretending the past never happened. It happens when you meet the present with a new intention over and over again. If you've spent years speaking without kindness, you can start softening your words today. If you've acted out of fear, you can choose one act of courage now. If you've been avoiding the truth, you can speak it once sincerely and let that be the first step toward a different path. And the beauty of it is, you don't have to wait for a special occasion or for your life to calm down or for some grand moment of enlightenment. The shift can begin in the smallest things. Holding the door open for a stranger without checking your phone. Letting someone merge in traffic without honking. Noticing when your mind is about to criticize and choosing silence instead. The current may still carry some of the old seeds for a while, but each new choice is like digging a small channel for the water to follow. Over time, those small channels become the new riverbed. And here's where it gets real. This is not about being perfect. It's about being willing. Willing to notice, to pause, to choose differently even when the old habit is tugging at your sleeve. So I'll ask you if you could make one small intentional shift tonight. What would it be? Write it in the comments, not as a promise to anyone else, but as a note to yourself. Sometimes, seeing it in your own words is enough to start paddling in a new direction. Because shifting the course isn't about reaching some magical place where there's no more struggle. It's about becoming the kind of person who can steer in any waters. And when you realize that something amazing happens, you stop fearing the river. And that's when freedom starts to feel possible. In fact, freedom has a way of surprising you. It doesn't always look like the end of your troubles. Sometimes, it's the ability to sit calmly in the middle of them. And that's exactly what we'll talk about next. Most people think freedom is about escape, getting away from the job you hate, leaving the relationship that's draining you, paying off the debt that's been breathing down your neck. And sure, those things can feel like freedom, but they're not the deepest kind. True freedom isn't what happens when there's nothing left to trouble you. It's what happens when troubles can't control you. It's when pain arrives and you don't collapse under it. When joy comes and you don't cling to it as if it will save you. When life changes suddenly and you can stand in the middle of it without being thrown off your feet. That's the freedom that comes from not being owned by your karma. Not because it's gone, but because you're no longer reacting blindly to it. Picture standing in the center of a busy intersection, people rushing in every direction, voices calling out, horns blaring, and you simply watching. Not running after one group, not blocking another, just seeing it all pass, knowing none of it defines you. When you can do that, with your own thoughts, emotions, and impulses, when you can let them come and go without grabbing hold or pushing away, you've touched a kind of freedom no one can take. Here's something worth noticing. When you stop fighting your experiences, you also stop feeding the cycles that keep them coming back. You break the habit of creating new karma out of every reaction. So let me ask you, if you could stand in the middle of your own life without being pushed or pulled, what would that look like? Write a word or short phrase in the comments. Something that feels like freedom to you. It might inspire someone else to imagine it for themselves. Because once you've seen that kind of freedom, you realize life doesn't have to be a battle with karma. It can be a conversation, a lesson, a shared walk home. And in that walk, there's one more question worth asking. Not how do I get rid of karma, but how do I live with it? So lightly that it stops feeling like a weight. That's where we're going next. There's a moment somewhere along this path when you stop asking how to end karma. You realize it's not an enemy you need to defeat. It's more like a shadow. It walks with you as long as you walk in the light. Living lightly with karma means you still plant seeds, still see them grow, still watch them bear fruit. But you're no longer tangled up in every branch and thorn. You speak with care not because you're afraid of punishment, but because you've tasted the peace that follows kindness. You act with honesty not to earn cosmic points, but because dishonesty feels heavy in your chest. You forgive not because it erases the past, but because carrying resentment is like wearing a backpack full of bricks. And here's the part most people miss. Living lightly doesn't mean ignoring what you've done. It means owning it, learning from it, and then setting it down. You don't drag your old mistakes into every new day. You don't keep replaying the scene just to prove to yourself how bad it was. Instead, you ask, what seeds am I planting right now? Will they grow into more weight or more light? And when you start living like this, something shifts. Your life becomes less about control and more about harmony. The garden still grows, but you tend it with open hands. So here's my invitation to you tonight. Before you sleep, think of one small action you can take tomorrow that would make your inner garden lighter. It doesn't have to be big. Hold the door. Send the message. Say thank you. Write it in the comments if you want. It might plant a seed in someone else's day. Because here's the secret. The lighter you live, the less you need the world to change before you can feel free. And when you don't need the world to bend in your favor, you stop struggling against it. That's when you begin to see karma isn't a sentence. It's a mirror. And you're free to change the reflection anytime you choose. Which brings us to the closing steps of this journey, a way of seeing that turns karma itself into your teacher. That's what we'll explore next. At some point you realize karma isn't here to punish or reward you. It's here to show you. Every result, pleasant or painful, is like a note left on your desk. Sometimes it says, keep going, this is working. Sometimes it says, look again. There's something here you haven't learned yet. When you start treating karma like a teacher instead of a judge, the whole relationship changes. You stop flinching every time something hard shows up. You lean in and ask, what are you trying to tell me? That conversation can be surprisingly gentle. The discomfort you feel when you speak harshly. That's the lesson on compassion. The warmth you feel after helping someone. That's the lesson on connection. The uneasy pit in your stomach after cutting a corner. That's the lesson on integrity. And unlike school, the tests aren't there to make you fail. They're there to give you another chance to get it right. Life will keep sending similar situations until you've learned what you need to learn, and the moment you do, the curriculum shifts. If you can start to see karma this way, you'll stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this offering me? That's when even the hard seasons feel less like punishment and more like training. So let me ask you, what's one life event you used to see as pure bad luck, but now recognize as a lesson? Share it in the comments. You never know, your story might help someone reframe their own struggles. Because here's the quiet magic of treating karma as a teacher. You stop running from it. And when you stop running, you can finally keep up with what it's trying to show you. And that leads to the next step. Making peace with karma so fully that it becomes part of your walk, not an obstacle in your way. That's where we're headed next. Making peace with karma doesn't mean you suddenly enjoy every consequence that shows up at your door. It means you stop turning each one into a lifelong fight. You see, resistance multiplies weight. When something difficult happens and you pile judgment, blame, and self-pity on top of it, you're adding bricks to a backpack you already have to carry. But if you can meet it without the extra layers, just here it is, this is mine to walk through, you travel lighter. Making peace is a kind of surrender, but not the giving up kind. It's the kind where you stop thrashing in the water long enough to float. It's trusting that whatever is here is part of your unfolding, not a detour from it. And yes, that's hard. Especially when the results feel unfair or wildly out of proportion to what you think you've done. But peace doesn't come from finally getting an explanation, it comes from knowing you don't need one in order to move forward. When you reach this place, you can hold both the joy and the grief without either one owning you. You can see a good season without clinging to it and walk through a bad one without calling it the end. So here's a small practice tonight. Before bed, think of one thing in your life right now that feels unfair or heavy. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to stop fighting this for just one day? If you're comfortable, share it in the comments, not for advice, but just to set it down somewhere outside your own mind. Because the moment you stop treating karma as an enemy, it can finally walk beside you. And when it walks beside you, it starts to feel less like a chain and more like a companion. A quiet reminder of the seeds you've planted and the paths they've led you to. And from here, there's an even gentler step, learning to live so fully in the present that you're planting the kind of seeds you'll be glad to meet later. That's where we'll go next. Every moment is a seed. What you think, say, and do, those are the plantings you'll meet again, whether in a week, a year, or a lifetime. Most people don't notice what they're planting until the garden blooms. By then, the weeds are knee-high and the work is harder. But if you can be mindful in the moment, you can choose what grows before it takes root. Planting better seeds isn't about grand gestures. It's about the everyday choices that seem too small to matter until they do. Choosing to listen instead of interrupt. Pausing before you speak in frustration. Offering help without waiting to be asked. And here's the beautiful part. Good seeds don't just grow in your own garden. They cross fences. They drift into the lives of people you may never meet. A kindness you plant today might bloom in someone else's world tomorrow. The challenge is, we're not always in the mood to plant something good. Some days we're tired, distracted, or carrying our own storms. That's when the practice matters most, because even on those days, you're still planting something. So maybe the real question is, what do you want to be surprised by later? A field full of thorns or a path lined with shade trees you planted for yourself years ago? Here's an idea before you sleep tonight. Choose one seed you'll plant tomorrow on purpose. It could be a word, an act, even a silent decision not to pass along your frustration. If you want, share it in the comments. Your intention might inspire someone else to plant their own. Because when you commit to planting better seeds, the future stops feeling like a mystery you have to fear. It becomes a place you're quietly shaping one choice at a time. And when you live like that, something remarkable happens. You start to feel less like the victim of karma and more like its gardener. Which brings us to the final turn in this journey, what it means to walk this path. Knowing karma is neither friend nor foe, but simply the ground beneath your feet. That's what we'll explore next. When you've seen karma clearly enough, you stop asking whether it's good or bad. You start to see it for what it is. Not a scorekeeper, not a curse, not even a blessing. Just the natural ground your life is built on. Walking the path with karma means you move through life knowing the soil responds to every seed. And instead of resenting that truth, you learn to walk with it, step for step. Some days the path is soft under your feet. You can feel the cool shade of trees you planted years ago. Other days it's rocky, and the thorns remind you of choices you'd rather not remember. But either way, you keep walking. You tend what's ahead of you, not what you've already passed. This kind of walking takes trust. Trust that the work you do now will shape the road ahead. It takes patience to see that the path is long and not every turn will show you the view you want right away. And most of all, it takes presence, because the only place you can plant, tend and walk is here. This step, this breath. So I want to ask you, what does your next step look like if you walk it with this kind of awareness? Not your next month, not your next year, just the very next step. If you're willing, write it in the comments. You might be surprised how much clarity can fit into a single step. Because here's the quiet gift of walking with karma. It's not about reaching some perfect destination. It's about knowing that every step is the destination, that the path itself is the practice. And when you can live like that, you're no longer carrying karma like a burden. You're moving with it like a dance partner, sometimes leading, sometimes following, but always in rhythm. Which leads us to the close of our journey, a final reflection on how this whole dance changes when you stop trying to win and simply begin to live. That's where we'll go next. Every journey has an end, but the end isn't always a door closing. Sometimes it's a window opening onto a quieter view. When you've walked alongside karma long enough, you stop needing it to look a certain way. You stop waiting for the final moment when all accounts are settled or all lessons are done. Instead, you find yourself simply living. The garden still needs tending. The path still needs walking. But the tension is gone. You're not in a race to finish. You're not trying to skip ahead to the good part. You're here fully in the part you're in. And that's the gentle ending, not the end of karma, but the end of your struggle with it. The day you no longer feel the urge to measure every step, to label every moment as a win or a loss. You just breathe, plant, walk, and let life unfold. From here, the past becomes a teacher, not a prison. The future becomes a garden, not a gamble. And the present becomes home. So before we close tonight, I'd like you to take a quiet moment. Think of one thing from your past that you can release, not because it wasn't real, not because it didn't matter, but because you no longer need to carry it. If you're comfortable, write it in the comments. Your letting go might encourage someone else to loosen their own grip. And if you found peace in this walk we've taken together tonight, you can carry it into tomorrow. Not by remembering every word, but by remembering the feeling. Light enough to breathe, steady enough to step. If you'd like to keep walking together, make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you'll know when the next story begins. And if you want to continue right now, the next video is waiting. It's called How to Tell If You're Paying Off Old Karma or Creating New Ones. It's a perfect companion to what we've shared tonight. Until then, rest well. The path will still be here in the morning, and so tonight's walk draws to a close. We've wandered through gardens of cause and effect, followed the threads of our choices, and listened to the quiet voice of the mind that remembers it all. If you've made it here, you've already done the most important thing. You've given yourself time to be still, time to notice, time to breathe. There's no need to hold on tightly to the ideas we've shared. They will settle where they're meant to, like leaves drifting down onto soft earth. For now, you can let them rest. And you can let yourself rest too. Feel your body soften into the bed. Let your breath be easy, no effort, no control. With every exhale, imagine setting down one more thing you don't need to carry tonight. A worry, a thought, a piece of the day that doesn't belong in your dreams. Here in this moment, you are safe. The garden of your mind will keep growing quietly while you sleep. And by morning, you will step into a new day with lighter hands, ready to plant something good. If you found comfort in tonight's story, you can leave a small trace of your journey. In the comments, share the one thought or image you'll carry with you into sleep. And if you'd like to keep walking with me, subscribe and tap the bell so we can meet again in the next story. For now, close your eyes. The night is deep. The path is quiet. And you, my friend, have nowhere else to be but here. Rest well. The night has settled now, the way a blanket falls slowly over the shoulders. Warm and certain. The story is no longer something you have to follow. It can drift on without you carrying its own quiet momentum while you sink deeper into stillness. The air in the room is calm. The faint hum, the soft rustle, the subtle rhythm of your own breathing, all of it blending into one steady presence that holds you like a tide holding a boat. You don't have to steer anymore. You don't have to remember where we've been in tonight's journey. The lessons, the images, the thoughts, they've already settled into the soil of your mind, and they will grow on their own. Somewhere far off in the gentle dark, a path still winds between trees you've planted some long ago, some just tonight. You don't need to walk it now. You can simply trust that it's there waiting, and that each step you take in the waking hours will lead you along it when the time is right. For now, your only task is to rest. Feel your body becoming heavier in the best way, like a stone finding its place at the bottom of a clear stream. The water moves around it. The world moves around you. And you at the center are still. Let your thoughts become lighter, like mist rising and fading in the early morning sun. Let your breath be the only thing you notice. In and out. a little slower each time, a little softer. And if sleep comes now, it will feel like stepping into a garden at dawn, quiet, fresh, and full of promise. Good night, my friend. May you rest deeply. Sweet dreams.